Hi everybody, my name is Rajan. Today we are going to discuss about what is respiration means. Last class we have studied about how the organisms are taking food, that means nutrition. So in this class we are going to discuss about by using that food what we have taken in after digestion, how it is converted into energy. That process we are going to discuss. Before entering to this, you have to understand two things, some of the basic differences. For example, what do you mean by respiration and what do you mean by breathing? Sometimes in books also it was given in the breathing side it is given respiration. So you must understand the basic difference. Breathing means taking in oxygen and giving out of carbon dioxide. That is a basic definition we can give. Next one, if we ask what is respiration, respiration means how the energy which how energy is obtained by using oxygen through the digested food material or absorbed food material, how it is done, that process is called as respiration. Most of the time the respiration takes place inside a cell, so we will call it as a cellular respiration. Before entering to these diagrams, that means this practical diagrams, activity diagrams, we will first see actually what is taking place inside us. For example, most of the time our body wants glucose as the food source, the major food source, because from glucose only we will get maximum amount of energy. It doesn't mean that fats, proteins, they don't give energy. They too give energy, but they can't give energy how much the glucose is giving. So the first importance is given for the glucose. And in this picture, or in this picture, they have given something that is glucose, which is a 6 carbon compound. This glucose can undergo in three process of making energy. So before converting into those three energy requirements, undergoing the three energy requirements, this glucose has to be converted into pyruvate, which is a 3 carbon molecule. Then, and still pyruvate, the process will takes place inside the cytoplasm. After that, if there is oxygen, that means if there is more oxygen, then that pyruvate will enter into mitochondria, which will be converted it into carbon dioxide, water and energy. If there is lack of oxygen, and this mainly takes place inside the muscles, that will be converted into a lactic acid plus energy. When lactic acid is produced more, we will get muscle cramps. That is why whenever we are doing some exercises we will get muscle pain, because lactic acid is produced. Then that lactic acid, after production of lactic acid, oxygen will come in and it will be converted into energy. There's a different processes going on. And if both the things are happen, if there is absence of oxygen, if there is no oxygen at all, it will be converted into ethanol, carbon dioxide plus energy. And you must understand one thing, inside a cell is the main energy coin means the cell depends on a chemical compound as a main energy source. That coin or that currency, energy currency, is known as ATP. And apart from ATP there are more energy coins are there, which can be converted into the main energy currency, that is ATP. For example, ADP, NADPH, they all can be converted afterwards into ATP. And this is one of the major important process that takes place in inside the cell. And you might have studied that mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell, that means which generates energy. And this generation of energy inside the mitochondria takes place like this. That means once the food is taken, digested, absorbed into the bloodstream, first it will carry it to the liver for detoxification. Then blood started to circulate this. On that part, insulin also will come. Insulin will guide, insulin hormone will guide that glucose to enter into the cell. And when it is entered into the cell, before entering the cell, it will be converted into a pyruvate compound that is in cytoplasm. Then when it is entering into the mitochondria, they will undergo this change. And after entering to the mitochondria, inside the mitochondrial cristae, these will be converted into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And if that is lacking, because muscle cells don't have mitochondria, so it will converted into lactic acid. And the third, in the absence of oxygen, under 100% absence of oxygen, it will be converted into ethanol. So you have to understand that glucose is a 6 carbon molecule which will be converted into a 3 carbon molecule. And that 3 carbon molecule can be converted in further energy in 3 steps. One is on carbon dioxide. Whenever it is in presence of oxygen, the energy will be ATP. And whenever it is in the muscles, it will be lactic acid plus ATP, and ethanol plus carbon dioxide plus ATP will be generated. So this you have to keep understand in the mind. And the main energy source is ATP. Now we move into the breathing system, that is how the respiration is taking place in human beings. Before entering that into this, I am showing this diagram directly from a downloaded copy because the diagram which I have drawn is not visible properly. So first of all, I ask apologies for that. And as you know that, listen to the diagram, observe the diagram very carefully. As we know that the air what we breathe will enter into the lungs through nasal cavity. That means before the nasal cavity we are having the nostrils. Through the nostrils the air will enter in the nasal cavity. Through the nasal cavity the air will go into a separate system which is known as a respiratory system in humans. In the respiratory system of humans begins just from the larynx, because just above the larynx, that means till the pharynx, it is a common passage for both the food and the air. So whenever we know that whenever we are eating food, sometimes the food will enter into the lungs. Sometimes, in order to protect from that, our body is having a system known as our body is having a system known as epiglottis. So whenever we are eating the food, the epiglottis will come and block the air passage so that the food will pass directly through the esophagus into the stomach. And from the larynx, just below to the larynx means a voice box, just below to the larynx, the respiratory or the pathway of respiration in humans begins, original pathway. So if you see that the first tube that connects from the larynx to the lungs is known as trachea. And this trachea is protected with C-linked cartilage. In this diagram, the trachea, the C-linked cartilage is shown in a sky blue color, C-linked cartilage. And this trachea is divided into two branches, one to the right side and another to the left side. So the first branch from the left to the left or the right we will call it as the primary bronchus. And this, from this bronchus, bronchi will generate another small branch of bronchus, and this bronchi will enter into the alveoli, a small sac like structure which is the original breathing area. And another one more thing, if you observe this lungs very properly, you can see that a small c-shaped bone on which the lungs is placed. That particular bone is known as the diaphragm. And another thing, if you see the left and the right side boundaries, that is near to the arm side, you can see a small bones that covers on that, which is known as the rib cage. So that is why the lungs are protected with the rib cage, lungs and heart. And that particular area which is protected with the rib cage, we will call it as the thoracic area. Now we'll move into the physiology of respiration. That means what is happening when we inhale and exhale. So if you see that there are two diagrams, one is known as exhalation and another is known as inhalation. And if you see that each and every process is numbered 1, 2, 3, what is happening. So first we will discuss about what will happen when you exhale the air. Exhale the air means giving out of carbon dioxide. When we exhale the air out, we are exhaling out a good amount of carbon dioxide. When we are exhaling out, what is happening is the rib cages will relax and the diaphragm also come to a relaxed stage. Relaxed stage means it will come to a C-shaped structure. Then when it is coming to the inhalation, the opposite will happen. The rib cage will expand and the diaphragm also will expand. When these following things are happened inside the thoracic area, there creates a pressure gradient so that the air from outside will come into the lungs, and that particular process is known as inhalation. So when you are inhaling in, there will be maximum amount of oxygen. That means the amount of carbon dioxide will be less. That you have to keep in mind when we are inhaling and when we are exhaling. When we are inhaling, the amount of amount of oxygen will be higher than the amount of carbon dioxide. When we are exhaling out, the amount of carbon dioxide will be higher than the amount of oxygen. So this process is an autonomous process. It is not controlled by us, and it is 100% controlled by the brain, especially the cerebellum, pons, cons. They plays the role and they give the signal how much air to be in, how much air to be out, everything. So when this process is happening, you must understand that amount of oxygen, our lungs capacity, that means according to the shape of the body, size of the body, according to the area, everything matters. For example, when we are moving from a plain area to an higher area, for especially mountains, we will be having a problem for breathing. That problem is because when we are going higher and higher, the amount of oxygen is becoming less. That means the amount of oxygen present there is very less, very low compared to the oxygen that is present to the plain area. Because of that, many of the people, those who are lived on the plain area, when they go to the higher mountains, they will be having breathing problem which is known as hypoxia, that means lack of oxygen. So, and the people, those who are living in the hilly areas, they don't have that problem, because even though we inhale oxygen, that means they are living on that higher mountain areas, even though the oxygen amount is low compared to the plain, but they have more amount of hemoglobin inside their blood. We will discuss about this inside the circulatory system. So this mechanism, you have to keep in mind what is happening in exhalation, what is happening in inhalation. And another one more thing, there are a lot of organisms are there which have the capacity to take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. For example, when we take fishes, they take in oxygen, they are not taking atmospheric oxygen, they are taking dissolved oxygen. So they will breathe through a special breathing apparatus known as gills, and we use lungs, and spiders use book lungs. So like that, the process of breathing and the organs of breathing will be keep on changing according the organism where they are living. And insects also will breathe, they have the small channels on their skin surface, and which is known as trachea. And apart from that, some have the capacity, for example earthworms and all, they have the capacity to breathe through the skin, through the moist skin, though that means exchange of gases can be taking place. And the next question comes is how this exchange of gas takes place. That means how the gas, that means oxygen or carbon dioxide, which was taken in through inhalation and exhalation, is given to the blood. The process by which the body use is diffusion. Diffusion means it depends upon the principle of gradient. For example, you can see a diagram here. That means if you see in one column that red dots are more, and in another column dead dots are less, but when we see the next column, there is a movement from the more red dot area to the less dead dot area in order to maintain the equilibrium. This particular process is known as diffusion. That means the movement of molecules from a higher concentration to the lower concentration area without spending any energy. You think about that. If our body is spending energy for breathing, we have to spend more energy for breathing itself. So the body wants to avoid that extra wastage of ATPs, which are the energy coins. And that particular energy will be to taken for some other purpose. And a human breathes almost 16 to 20 breaths per second. Now we will see how the gaseous exchange takes place in plants. Before entering to that, we have to know a little bit about what is the structure of a leaf, and what is their internal structure, that means inside how the tissues and cells are organized. This should be a topic which should be taken in an autotrophic nutrition, I forgot there. And this also can be linked with how the gaseous exchange takes place, because tomatoes are coming here, so we can link and study. So if you see the structure of a leaf, you can see one thing, that there is a blade, that means the outer area, that or lamina, and there are small network running in between, they are known as the veins. And through the middle we can see the midrib, and this particular lamina and midrib, everything is attached to a stem through leaf stalk or petiole. Then you can see stipules there, from where the other leaves are also emerging. Then a sheath means a covering. These are the typical structure of a leaf. And when we are coming to the how the cells are arranged inside the leaf, we will get something like this, which is also given in your textbook. So you can refer that also. And this portion is given under autotrophic nutrition. So when you see here, these are having 2-3 parts. You can see upper epidermis, mesophyll, placid mesophyll, spongy mesophyll, wax cuticle, then guard cell with chloroplast. We will discuss one by one. So whenever you see a leaf, most of the time the upper part of the leaf will be dark green and the lower part of a leaf will be light green. It is because the sunlight is falling on the upper portion of the leaf. Since they have to absorb more sunlight, more sun energy, almost all the time the chlorophyll will be found, or chlorophyll will be found on the upper region. So if you see on that basis inside, if you see the first layer, you can see a thick, you can see a thick layer which is known as epidermis. Epi means upper, dermis means skin, which will give a mechanical support to the leaf. And over that upper epidermis you can see a waxy cuticle. This waxy cuticle will help plants to repel the water in the rainy time or whenever it is dipped in some during some flood for a shorter period of time. Then below that you can see placid mesophyll. Placid, word placid means fenced, long fenced, and meso means middle, phylline means leaf. And on inside that placid mesophyll you can see some dotted structures, which is chloroplast, which is filled with chlorophyll. And this placid structure is supported with spongy mesophyll. They also are having little amount of chlorophyll inside that, and in between there are air space. This air space is for the passage of air. And now we are coming to lower epidermis. In the lower epidermis you can see that there is an space, an opening, which is known as the stomata. Through this stomata only the exchange of gas takes place. And this stomata also will have little amount of chloroplast inside that, which also do the part of absorbing the sunlight. And when you see this 3D diagram, you can see the exactly thing. The thick green color is the epidermis. Upper layer is green in color. Just below that, which is cuticle. Then you can see the upper epidermis, placid layer. Then you can see the veins which runs in between the leaf. Then the lower epidermis and the stomata and the spongy layer. This is how they are arranged. And when you see the structure of a stomata, we can see like this. That is, it is guarded very specially because this is the entry point through which water and carbon dioxide enters. Then water and oxygen moves out. So this should be guarded very properly. Why it has to be guarded very properly? Because according to the temperature, according to the humidity, it will open and close by itself. It is not open every time, because most of the summer time, now we are running in a summer season, so during from 10 to 4 6 o'clock 5 o'clock stomatas will be closed, because if the stomatas are open, lot of water will be moved out through the process of transpiration. So if you see the stomata, they are somewhat circular in shape, and they are have protected with a cells known as guard cells. You can see a something like a bean shaped structure to the middle, which is having nucleus, and in between these two guard cells we are having the stomatal pore. If you see the left and the right diagram, you can understand that. One diagram shows that the stomata is opened and another diagram shows that the stomata is closed. So this is the main function of the guard cell. That means they will guard that particular stomatal pore opening and closing according to the temperature and other external factors that is outside. And potassium is the ion which is helping more in the opening and closing of the stomatal pores. So when the stomata is open, the water will be moved out. That particular process is known as the transpiration. Transpiration means the water will move out to the atmosphere in the vapor stage, and this loss of water is also helpful for the plant in order to get rid of excess water. Plus, this tomatal pore is also useful for the exchange, because carbon dioxide is very much required to prepare the food. So entry of the carbon dioxide is very vital, and when the carbon dioxide, when it is used and fixed inside that cyclic process, then oxygen will be liberated out with some amount of water in the vapor stage. For all these things, stomatal pore is very useful. So you have to link and study this structure, stomata, and these two diagrams of the leaf with the autotrophic nutrition, and it is also helpful in the process of exchange of gases in plants.